Yo, what's going on YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte, and we are taking a look today, continuing our summer report series. As for the first time in this series, we're going to the Eastern Conference, taking a look at the Boston Bruins. It's been an interesting summer in Beantown. There's a lot to discuss today, so let's get right into it. So the Boston Bruins had a couple of key additions this summer, but before that, this is one of the teams where I want to talk about some of the subtractions, at least at the making of this video. We haven't seen Patrice Bergeron come back, which is a huge loss for this team. And that's really the only key loss that they had. And the problem is, Bergeron is the glue of this hockey team. And right now, this group, you look at their lineup, there is a clear need for that top six, really top number one center, and the Bruins are desperately lacking that without him. So hopefully they get everything figured out. I'm assuming they will, and there's even been rumors that Krejci could be coming in as well. Maybe this is sort of one of those things where right before training camp, Bergeron and Krejci show up, and then they announce that they were signed. I think that's kind of what we're looking at here. But until that point, this is their group we're looking at. So some of their additions. Pavel Zacha comes in as a center. They desperately needed center depth, and we'll get to that. Fabian Lysell, I think, has an outside chance of making the Bruins lineup. It's a little bit of a stretch, but it depends on where they want to put him. Are they comfortable putting him on the third line? Maybe he's better off another year in Europe or in Providence, but Fabian Lysell, outside chance there. Same thing for John Beecher. I think John Beecher is another guy we've heard a lot about over the last couple of years, former first-round pick. I think the Bruins would like to see him in the NHL a little bit more often this year as well. Looking at in between the pipes, there wasn't really too much on the blue line. Keith Kincaid, former Long Island boy, comes over from the New York Rangers, and he just goes a little bit further into the northeast corner as he joins the Boston Bruins. So those are some of the additions to the Bruins lineup. So let's take a look at the lineup. So their forward group is kind of the same in terms of their wingers. You've got Marchand, Pastrnak, Hall, and DeBrusk. That's your top six. So that's kind of staying the same here, but their center depth, again, this is where their center depth is lacking. Looking at their top four centers, Jack Studnicka, Pavel Zacha, Charlie Coyle, and Tomas Nosek. Now, I don't have a problem with those bottom two guys in Coyle and Nosek. They're in the right spot. I'm just not sold on Studnicka being really the top line center. And again, this is according to Daily Faceoff. Again, with the caveat that Bergeron has not signed yet, or Krejci. So if they add those two guys, that's a huge upgrade to this group. But as of right now, not a huge fan of that. They do still have to re-sign Zacha, which I think it's going to go to arbitration. But that is seemingly more of a bigger addition than you would expect. But again, I don't know how comfortable I am with Zacha at the center spot here. So we'll see what ends up happening, but that is something to keep an eye on in Boston. That is a critique right now, is their center depth. Looking at the blue line, Hampus Lindholm, Charlie McAvoy, Brandon Carlo, Matt Grzelcyk, Forbort, and Clifton. I have to say, I think that's pretty solid. I think another year of Carlo, he's been really growing. I think we're seeing just how big of a magnitude Hampus Lindholm coming in is, even at his cap hit. I think Lindholm kind of rounds out that top four incredibly nicely. And now, even though you've got Grzelcyk and Carlo, who maybe that's not the best second pair in the NHL, they're still pretty good. And then you look at the goaltending, and that's another story here. Jeremy Swayman and Linus Ullmark. They were really good last year. A great tandem. They had that great handshake when they would win games and the hugs and stuff like that. That was great to see. Can they do that again this year? And that's just how this works, right? They kind of performed better than we would expect. So can they do that again? Can they pull that back and do it again? That's going to be the big question in Boston there. So in terms of this team, this is a very well-rounded team, but you have to remember there's some injuries, and that's something I want to get to before we talk about my predictions. So you look at what they did. Their goals for goals against last year, they were 15th in the NHL for goals for and 4th in the NHL for goals against. And the Bruins have always been known as a team with really good defense, right? And a great defensive system. Well, now that's going to change because they don't have the same coaching staff there any longer, as Bruce Cassidy is no longer the head coach. of the Boston Bruins. And now that we see Jim Montgomery in there, Monty's coming into Boston, how are things going to change there? So, again, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But the big critique of this team is their center depth. They're pretty good goals for. They can score goals. They got the good goals against. Again, some criticism maybe in the sense of maybe a changing of the system with the new head coach. Maybe that does take a little bit of a dip. And the injuries. They're going to start the season without Charlie McAvoy and Brad Marchand. So those are two guys in your top six, really your first line center and a first pairing defenseman, both out of the lineup to start the year, and won't probably be back till the end of the year, whether that's Thanksgiving or Christmas or maybe even into January. There's some shoulder issues, so those guys are going to be out for a while, and that's where things get interesting for the Bruins, because now those guys are no longer there to start the year, and then they have to play catch-up in the second half of the season in the springtime. And is it already too little too late in what is being regarded as the best division in the National Hockey League next season in the Atlantic Division? So the Bruins here, listen, my prediction, and I've already talked about this in my division predictions video, I do have the Bruins missing the postseason this year. I think that there is one team, whether that ends up being Detroit or Ottawa, I don't think both of them will be better than the Bruins, and I'm going to give the Bruins that respect. I have them finishing fifth, just on the outside of the playoffs, but I do think one of Detroit or Ottawa gets in over them, because I think over the full 82-game schedule, they will be more consistent, and I think that's really where things lie for the Bruins. I would not be shocked if the Bruins get back into the postseason, but right now, without Marchand and McAvoy to start the season, Bergeron has not signed yet. There's too many questions with them, and I think there could be just enough of a gap between them and another team in that division that maybe we do see a changing of the guard there. So this is a huge season for Jim Montgomery, huge season for the staff there in Boston, like Don Sweeney, because the Bruins, if they miss the playoffs, heads will roll, and I just wonder what will happen next. So my prediction is the Bruins do miss the postseason this year, but I think it's going to be extremely, extremely close. I would not bet my life on it, but I do think the Bruins miss the postseason. So let me know what you guys think down below. What do you guys think of the Boston Bruins? Do you think they get to the playoffs in 2023? You're a little more optimistic, or are you more along my lines? I just don't think they're going to have the depth, especially with some of those top-end guys not there, to maybe get to the postseason. Thank you so much for watching. And guys, make sure to check out the rest of my Summer Report series as I go through the rest of the league. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.